Well, thank you very much for joining. I'm thrilled to join our next guest today is Chris Cade. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how you doing, Linda?
I'm fine. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good to be here. I'm looking forward to having fun with you and serving your audience.
Awesome. Chris, can you just share a bit about who you are, what you do, so that people can get to
Yeah,
know
basically, I teach online personal development, spirituality. So for me, it's e-courses, audios, videos, social media, any way I can reach and serve someone, that's how I'm showing up online. And I think the tagline of, what I create, liberate your life, really covers it because I look at, not just one aspect of our lives, but really any space in which we might feel imposed limitations externally or internally. Those are opportunities for us to be liberated. So I love to speak to any topic that will, serve somebody who's listening.
Awesome. So let's talk. Let's go straight to it. I think a lot of people do have the tendency, or maybe the habit, of sort of imposing limitations on themselves. So what could you say about to those people to sort of help them liberate themselves from those?
Well, for me, the true north is always returning to the present moment. When we feel limitation, constriction, lack, fear, any of those emotions, it's because we're not being in the present moment. We're somewhere else. We're in the future, we're in the past. Wherever we are, we're not here right now. And so the majority of my work really is, how do we return to the present moment? What is it that's holding us back from being there? But at the end of the day, to me, that's really what everything's about.
Yeah. And people who struggle, sort of, who are always stressed about what's going to happen next, or who are really sort of holding on to their past. So what would you say to them to say, like, it's okay, let go, like, be present? So what are some ways that people can actually, or some approaches or techniques people can use to actually come to the present moment, or to live in
Right.
the present moment?
Yeah, great question. First of all, I really always recommend meditation.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be a lot. It can literally be just 5 minutes a day. That's more than enough to get started. Ideally 20 or 30 minutes a day, but for someone who's stressed, that even that request will feel overwhelming. So what I did when I was in the corporate world is I would literally set an alarm every day for lunchtime just to do a meditation for 5 minutes. That's it, just 5 minutes meditation during lunchtime. And over time, that expanded to 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, and so on. But I think that meditation can become a stressor for people who are already stressed. It's another to-do item. Too much, overwhelming, don't have time, got other more important things to do. And the thing is that, studies after studies show the benefits of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say, do what you can do. If you can do 1 minute a day, literally set a timer for 1 minute, meditate for 1 minute. If you can do 5, do it for 5 minutes. Do whatever you absolutely can do, okay, without question, and start there. And then do that consistently for a week, for a few weeks, and then add 1 or 2 minutes. Again, don't add more than you can. Don't go say, well, I meditated for 5 minutes successfully for a few weeks, now let's do 45. That's not realistic. Do what honestly is realistic for you. Be honest with yourself, because if you take any advice from what we talk about today and then think of it as another to-do item,
Yeah.
it will become another source of stress, and it'll get put to the side. It won't get done, and it'll just become another thing you don't forgive yourself because you didn't do that one thing should have helped you. So of all the things we talk about today, discard anything that feels overwhelming, discard anything that doesn't resonate with you, and try and take just 1 or 2 things that you absolutely can do and will do. So in this case, meditation, I'd say absolutely do it if you can, for whatever the minimum time is you'll be successful for. That's the starting place. Another thing to look at is just our basic needs in life, because so often our bodies and our state of mind are a result of what we put into it. So if we are feeding ourselves junk food or not feeding ourselves enough, or putting in foods that trigger adrenaline, that trigger sugar highs and crashes and things like that, we're naturally going to be moving towards a state of stress, towards anxiety, towards frustration. And our bodies will be doing that without our conscious input. We might be saying, oh, I forgive the past, I forgive the future, I just want to be here right now. But that's not easy to do when we're feeling tired, frustrated with our bodies, hungry, things like that. So I always look towards nourishing foods, and especially sleep. Sleep is the number one thing that resets all of our chemicals, all of our hormones. It's when our body does its best healing, all of that. So for anybody not getting enough sleep, I would say get a little more sleep. I'm not going to say go get 8 or 10 hours of sleep a night, because again, that's another to-do item. You're just going to throw it away and say, I don't have time for that. I can't do that. So if you know that you normally get 6 hours of sleep a night, okay, then set an alarm before you go to bed to get you ready for bed, maybe 15 minutes prior. So instead of getting 6 hours of sleep a night, you'll get 6 hours and 15 a night. Do that for a few weeks, see how you do. And if you can, add 5 or 10 more minutes and keep doing it incrementally based on what you know you can do. Because I can say, yeah, the studies say, 8 hours a day of sleep and, 30 minutes of meditation in the morning and in the evening. And suddenly you're saying, where am I going to come up with 10 or 12 hours a day extra when I don't have enough time? So again, these suggestions, do what you can to improve your sleep. When it comes to diet, maybe you're on the run all the time. You really don't have time to get something better than fast food where you're located. Okay, I'm not going to say that you shouldn't ever do that, but what can you do? Drink extra water. Okay, that will hydrate you. That will help your brain. That will help you relax, be in the present moment, de-stress, reset your hormones, all that stuff. So even if you can't do anything else, drink more water. Again, orienting towards basic physical needs. Diet, exercise if you can. People who don't have time to exercise, again, you're stressed, don't have time, whatever. Sure, I could say go out and do, an hour of high intensity interval training, which is known to be optimizing for our hormones. It's basically the fountain of youth, basically, is high interval training. But let's say you don't have time for an hour, right? What do you have time for? You wake up, drink a glass of water, maybe get ready for, your work day or whatever it is, and do 20 jumping jacks really quick. Just do 20 jumping jacks and then be done. It'll take you 1 minute or less, right? Later in the day, you have a brief break, okay? Go do 10 push-ups or 10 crunches or something you can do on your own that's within reason that you're capable of doing and won't be an imposition on your time. Again, diet, exercise, basic needs, meditation, these are all things that will really support you, but don't take it on as this job or another to-do item. Really take it and say, what can I do honestly? What am I capable of given the resources I have that I can actually do? Pick 1 or 2 of them and just do it. And that's where I say that the best place to start is.
Amazing. And I love that you say to people that they just need to really take little teeny steps in order to potentially eventually transform their lives. So I love that. So you talked about forgiveness, and can you sort of talk us through sort of what you think would be what does forgiveness have to do with creating a life you love, and how does it work? And so yeah, share your thoughts on forgiveness.
Absolutely. You spoke to something important, creating a life that we love. How do we show up in this life and love what we're doing, love who we're being, and love the experiences we're having? And anytime we are held back in the past, our energy is in the past, or our energy is out in the future, we're not being present. And presence is where we enjoy our lives. We don't enjoy the future. We can't enjoy the future. It doesn't exist yet. We don't enjoy the past because that's just a figment of our imagination. It happened a long time ago. So when we think about what we actually enjoy, it's only in this moment. So what do we do to actually enjoy this moment more fully as it relates to forgiveness, what you're pointing to? The first thing is to realize the past is the past. It's not here now. We can choose a new moment in this moment here. We can choose to have our present moment be different than the past because it's about our experience, right? It's about who we are in this moment, not the future or the past. So the first thing is always be curious. What might be holding you back from the present moment? Is it forgiveness? Is it a pain from the past? Well, maybe someone from the past came into, that hurt you in the past is now in the present moment with you. And it triggers you and it takes you out of the present moment, right? What can bring you back, right? For me, deep breathing. Just 3 deep breaths will shift all of the physical anxiety, the physical stuff that goes on. There's a body of work, called the 6 seconds model. And it's about emotional awareness. And ultimately what the 6 seconds model points to is that when we get triggered, when we get scared, when we get taken out of the present moment, our body floods itself with chemicals for about 6 seconds. Whether it's adrenaline, anything that's, fight or flight, whatever it is, we're going to be flooded for about 6 seconds with these anxiety, fear, adrenaline, hormones. And what happens is if we don't stop that cycle, then it will repeat every 6 seconds and it'll keep going until we find a way to stop it. So what our real challenge is when we're triggered, find that way in 6 seconds to disrupt the cycle just a little bit, just one disruption. And for me, that's, just taking a few deep breaths. So again, if we're having trouble forgiving the past, take some deep breaths. Do what we have to return to the present moment, because we don't have to live out the past into the future or into the present. We can actually choose to let it be part of the past. And usually there's the reasons why we don't forgive, there's many reasons, and we could literally spend hours going into that. But a few of them are, big ones, a sense of entitlement. Okay, so when we are hurt, we feel entitled to what we believe is right. We want an apology. We want someone to acknowledge us. We want some way in which the past that feels wrong then becomes right. And we want some kind of entitlement or acknowledgement of that. But the thing is, we don't have a guarantee that we're ever going to get that acknowledgement. Maybe the person that we need to forgive cut us off in traffic and we will never see them again, right? So do we want to let that person ruin our whole day? Or do we want to take a few deep breaths and realize they're gone? It's over. I can either hold on to that or be here now. Sure, what they did is dangerous. Whatever they did made me feel unsafe, jeopardized, my family and my car, my children. I'm a parent. I am personally protective of my son, right? But at the end of the day, I say, am I okay? Did that experience, even though it was scary, do I need to get upset about it? Is there something I need to do about it? And if not, let it go, take some deep breaths, move on with my day. Maybe we want to forgive a loved one, but they've passed away, right? We don't always have the choice to forgive. And when we realize that forgiveness is not about entitlement, it's not about us being right, it's not about us feeling right. Forgiveness is about really one thing only, and that is letting go of what prevents us from being in the present moment. That's all forgiveness is. It's just letting go of what stops us from being present, whether that's forgiving us for our own critical thinking, whether that's, forgiving us for not getting enough sleep, forgiving us for not eating well, or forgiving ourselves for not getting the exercise we know supports us. Okay, it happened. Whatever. That's the past. And we can't fix or change that or any other person. What we can do is ask ourselves, how do I come into this present moment? How do I be here right now to make the most of this moment? So when you think about forgiveness, realize it's not about entitlement. It's not about being right. In fact, you can forgive other people, even when you're the one that did the wrong, because it's not about anything other than you making a better choice for yourself in the moment that honors this moment, not the past moments.
Oh, I love that. Making a better choice. Yeah, it's amazing. The one question, and you use the example of, you're in your car and somebody cuts you off, and you want to come back to the present moment. But what I've heard in the past from people I've worked with is somebody for abuse, or repeated abuse, or something maybe a lot more difficult than just some sort of traffic altercation, and they often refuse to forgive, and they kind of get stuck in that space, right? But so they refuse to forgive people because they feel that forgiving them will sort of be acknowledging or accepting what was done. So what are your thoughts about that?
I know what that's like. I've had some really traumatic, painful, difficult experiences in my life. So I like to look at what I teach and the way I show up as, does this work when the metaphorical shit hits the fan? When life is horrible, does the teaching still work? Okay, because I don't think that fluffy spirituality, meditating on a mountain, is helpful to us in our daily lives. It's not practical, it's not real. You and I are connecting on a computer, right? We're connecting from thousands of miles away over hours of time difference. At the end of the day, this is the reality of our lives, continually connected, engaged in the world. So if it can't work for us in the toughest of times, I don't consider it to be a truly valid teaching. But that's also why I encourage people to test things out, try them, see what's true for you. Because I can speak about my experience, and I hope that it helps you and gets, one or two or three nuggets that you can run with. But at the end of the day, you have to find out what works for you. And in the darkest of dark times, it is near impossible to forgive. And I can think of times in my life where I had to hold in two hands genuinely opposing experiences. On one hand, the anger in me wanted to just strangle, get back, get revenge, hurt, really lash out because I'm right, they were wrong, and what they did was abusive. The other hand was holding forgiveness, prayer, love, compassion. Not because I approve of what they did. What they did can still be wrong, reprehensible, horrifying. So I'm not forgiving them and saying what they did was okay. I'm forgiving them and saying, forgive them, they know not what they do. Whatever they're doing, they were acting out of pain. They were acting out of their own limitations, their own fears, their own lack of forgiveness. I don't know what their story is. I don't know why they chose to hurt me, consciously or unconsciously. I don't know why that happened all the time, and I may never know. But what I do know is that I believe deep down, people are doing the best they can with who they are and the resources they are, just like I am. When I think about the times in my life where I hurt people, and I have done that many times, before my spiritual path, I don't speak about this much, but before I embarked on a spiritual path, I had low self-esteem, very low self-esteem. And I was in relationships that were disempowering, where my partners cheated on me. And honestly, where I cheated on my partners. And in those times, I can either hold on to the past and say, I was a bad person, I'm horrible, I can't forgive myself, they can't forgive me, I can't forgive them for cheating on me. I could go all the way down that rabbit hole of all the things that are wrong about who I was, what I did, and the way that, I treated other people. Or I can acknowledge so low self-esteem. I did some horrible things. I hurt people. That doesn't make what I did right, but I can acknowledge that's who I was, not who I am. And deep down, I felt like I was a good person, and I was. People would say Chris is generous, caring, compassionate, service-oriented. All these things were qualities in me before my spiritual path. It's not like I just magically got them.
Yeah.
They were there. So why do good people do painful things? Why do good people hurt? because we have pain from our past, because we have things that we haven't forgiven ourselves for or others for, that we haven't let go of. So I looked at it and said, well, if I, a good-hearted person, hurt other people, is it possible that these other people who hurt me might have good hearts and are just acting out in painful ways? Is it possible that they're doing the best that they could with what they have, just like I did? And when I started to see, look in the mirror and see like, oh, I am a good person and I have hurt people, I can forgive myself. That's not who I need to be anymore. I can make new choices in this present moment for who I am. I can then let go of all the hurts I caused. It makes it easier for me then to let go of the hurts that other people caused me. Because it's not about them being right or wrong. It doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. I've been right, I've been wrong. I can forgive myself in both situations. Because it's really, forgiveness is the gift I give myself. It's the gift that I choose to say, whatever happened, whoever I was, whoever they were, right or wrong, that's then. This is now. So do I want to hold on to the past? Or do I want to actually step into, an amazing moment that'll create an even more amazing future?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, oh, I love that. And it is right. I mean, it's all about choice and it's all about present moment. And I completely agree that when we're able to forgive, even like everything about ourselves, because we get a little confused, I think, because there's a tendency for us to want to show and acknowledge and bring awareness to sort of what we consider like the good parts of us. But then we try to resist or hide from what we would consider the not so good parts of us, which I think is I don't know. I mean, do you think that's a part of the pain or the complications or the difficulties of sort of bringing forgiveness to our whole selves?
Of course, if we are scared or shameful or frustrated with the parts of ourselves, if we're trying to hide the not so good parts of ourselves, we're going to lash out. We're going to see that in other people. We're going to project the pain onto the other people so that we don't have to feel it ourselves. It's easier to say that person wronged me than it is to say I feel wrong, right? I feel bad about myself. Those are things we don't want to say because our psyche doesn't handle that well, generally speaking. So if we put that on someone else and say, well, I can't forgive them, they're the problem, we never have to own that darkness within ourselves. We never have to look within. But ultimately, I find that's where the greatest freedom is. And that's why I shared that I cheated on former partners. It's not because that's a good thing. No, it's a terrible thing. And not to judge that. It's a painful thing. Yeah. And I inflicted pain on people. But if I hide the parts of me that I think are no longer fit for public consumption, if I try and show up with you and only show the pretty parts of myself, that loses a level of authenticity. It loses a level of realness. And it means that I'm holding back because I'm scared of what people will think. That's not service. That's not being in the present moment. That's not forgiveness. At the end of the day, owning our own darkness, our own shadows, our own pain, our own difficulties is the fastest way to transform our lives in positive ways. And it doesn't mean we indulge the pain. It doesn't mean we sit there and just say, I'm worthless, I'm worthless, I'm worthless, and just believe it. But we can say, you know what? Right now, I feel worthless. And I'm going to be with that. I don't have to believe it. But I'm going to acknowledge that's what I'm feeling. I'll take a few deep breaths. Like I said, what keeps us from the present moment is what keeps us from forgiveness. So I'm going to take a few, deep breaths into this shame, into this pain, into this anger, whatever it is, and be present with it and let it be what it is. Because I've found that so often we will wrap stories around why we're angry, why we're frustrated, why we have the shame, whatever it is. And yet we can follow that rabbit hole of the story. Yeah. And that takes us in a direction. Maybe it'll be helpful, maybe it won't. But one way that is always helpful for me is to acknowledge what it is and breathe into it and be present with it. Because I don't have to hold on to it. And breathing actually has a, a mind-body connection that allows our nervous system to relax. And that allows us to handle adverse conditions more effectively. So if we feel anger, and then we take a deep breath, a few deep breaths, and just let it relax in, then the next time we feel anger, it won't be as heightened and it won't last as long, because our nervous system is learning how to hold the anger more effectively. Same thing if we have pain from our past, things we haven't forgiven, okay? That comes into our space, deep breathing, let it relax, and then over time, it releases it piece by piece. So all these things about ourselves we don't like, those are opportunities for forgiveness, opportunities for deep breathing, and ultimately to relax our nervous systems and let go. In the context of practical things, because I think that it's nice that I can talk about these ideas, right? But at the end of the day, what can you do that works, right? For me, I found I need massages. I literally need massages about once a month, and for so long I didn't get them. And I kept saying, oh, my intention is once a month massage. And eventually I had this experience where I literally was just so tense and it was everywhere. I needed an emergency massage, literally. Like I felt like I couldn't do function. And I called up a place and I was like, hey, can you get me a massage? There's a chain here in the US called Massage Envy. They said, we can take you in an hour. That's the soonest. I said, I'm there. Afterwards, they sold me on a membership. And I was like, okay, once a month, whatever it is, yeah, I'll do that. And now they call me every month and say, hey, we charged your card. Would you like a massage? And I was like, well, you've got my money. I think I'll do that, right? I'm letting someone else be accountable for my self-care. But I'm seeing that what I need is that support. So that's practical for me. And I don't get a massage every month, but because the massages accumulate if I don't use them, when I travel to where there is a Massage Envy location, I call them up and say, hey, I'm getting off a plane. Can you take me? You're right. Times when I need it and I know it's going to work for me. So in the context of, self-care, find what supports you. Maybe it's, getting a massage. Maybe it's going to a spa. Maybe it's going for a swim or meditation. Maybe it's taking a nap. I love power naps. I live by them. Find what relaxes your nervous system and do that, whatever it is, and try different things till you find what works for you. Because when you can relax your nervous system, then when you have those moments of anger, shame, fear that we were talking about, you're more easily able to relax. And if you're not, you know where to go to get your relaxation, to calm that nervous system, because that's really all it is. It's your nervous system go, I'm not in the moment anymore, that frustration. Yeah. All we have to do is just relax. Find anything that supports that nervous system relaxing, and it'll work magical wonders for anger, fear, shame, forgiveness, all these things we're talking about. It all comes down to being in the present moment. And if our nervous system is shaking, that's not presence, we're being pulled out. So find what we need to just to land in this moment.
And is this kind of since you started your spiritual journey, is this something that you can actually just it's almost like flicking a switch, you can make happen right away? Something sort of irritates you or triggers you or happens and whoops, you just deep breath and you're back in the present moment? Is it that easy?
It can become that easy. It certainly doesn't start that way, right? It starts with anger lasting for 20 or 30 minutes or hours after a painful, difficult experience. With some deep breaths, at some point during that 4 hours, you go, oh yeah, I remember I should take some deep breaths. And that helps us relax. Over time, that 4 becomes 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10, 5, 1 minute, whatever it is. At this point, I don't get upset when people cut me off on the freeway. It's not even part of my psychology anymore. It's like, oh, they changed lanes, right? I can reframe what that experience is in my life. From they cut me off, they wronged me, they were unsafe, don't they know what they're doing? All the judgment that I can throw out there, I can say, they changed lanes. It can be that simple, right? Now, that's not to say it's that simple when someone hurts us, a loved one hurts us, betrays us, when we feel angry or wronged in the workplace, right? But what happens is we can feel anger for less time and we feel it for, less frequently. And over time, the more we practice whatever we need to return to the present moment. We will feel those emotions less frequently, in less duration, to the point where it can be just a switch and we turn it off. Or like in the case of getting cut off, it just isn't part of our psychology anymore, right? And that's, ultimately, I think what we aspire to. And I've spoken about this in the past, which is, this idea that we can forgive people or things before they even happen, right? We don't need to be wronged to be in the state of forgiveness. Forgiveness is the state of presence, right? So we can call forgiveness something we give to another person or give to ourselves. We can give it a label that helps us work with it. But at the end of the day, forgiveness and being in the present moment are the exact same thing. And there is never a need to forgive when we are truly present. It's only when we're not being present that we think there's some need to forgive. And I think that's a really important distinguishment, to what you're speaking to, is over time, the more that we land in the present moment, the less severe the things are that trigger us, the less they don't last as long. And some of them, maybe not all of them, some of them will just not be relevant anymore, not be in our psychology. We'll say, whatever, they change lanes. We have a new way, a different way of looking at that experience. And maybe for some people, that'll even relate to being wronged in the workplace or other things. Instead of saying they got the promotion, they took away my promotion, they took away my opportunity, they're sabotaging me. We just say, well, right now the business is operating pretty darn well, and I'm contributing to it in the ways that I'm doing that right now. And when the time is right, my roles or responsibilities may shift, and that other person is now in a different position. Not they stole something from me, not the whole story around it. They're in another position. They changed lanes, they're in another position. Whatever it is that allows us to land in the present moment, I think that's a meaningful story.
And what I think is really, really valuable here is just dropping the story. I mean, the story that we invent around this happened because this person, we just invent it. It's not even real. So I love that forgiveness is a state of being in the present moment. Love that. So I guess when you're able to forgive, you're able to be in the present moment. Would you say that's you've actually healed your past or your past stories? Does that have something to do with being in the present moment?
It can, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
Right? When I talk about doing what works for us, for some people, going back through the stories and reframing them in more meaningful ways helps. So for some people, I got cut off, that was unsafe, dangerous, that person is selfish. A reframe into they changed lanes can be helpful, right? So sometimes changing the story in the past helps. Sometimes some sort of self-inquiry, some sense of self-awareness looking at the past will help us to find peace with it, right? Maybe we just need a new perspective. Maybe trusting that God, the universe, the divine source, creation, Allah, whatever name we want to use to our higher power, our connective source, maybe giving it to that resonates with us and saying, well, this is the story that happened. It's yours now, right? Maybe that helps, okay? I'm not here to say that we have to heal our past to be present and in the moment. What I do say is that being in the present moment allows us to be in a state of being where the past isn't relevant. Right? And I think that's a different way of looking at it. So whatever supports us to be in the present moment is what I advocate for. For some people, that's Byron Katie and the work. You have a story. You have, exactly what the judgments are. You look at them, you turn them around, and you own them, right? That's still taking the story and then saying, how can we let go of that story, right? So that works for some people. For other people, it might be as simple as meditating every day and deepening the amount of time they meditate. Because we're truly meditating, what that is saying, well, this story, this thought came across, I'm going to drop it. This story, this thought came across, I'm going to drop it, right? That's all we're doing when we're trying to be present. Oh, I have this thing in the past. This person cut me off, I'm going to drop it. This person hurt me earlier, I'm going to drop it, right? So For some people, going through the stories, using ways of either healing the story or reframing it is really helpful, and that helps them forgive and come to the present moment. If that works, do it. Okay. For other people, people like who study like Eckhart Tolle and the Power of Now, for him, it's like, well, the story doesn't really matter. I'm feeling pain. Why don't I be present with the pain? Breathe into it a little bit, and then let the pain drop. Right. So instead of having a story about why pain is here, I just let it drop, be present with it. So, as long as you're in the present moment, like I said earlier, you're in the state of forgiveness. And it doesn't matter if there is a story or is not a story. Whatever supports you to get to the present moment, I say run with it.
Amazing. Yes. So is there a way to know that you're ready to do this? I mean, some people will say, it's just not the right time for me to, get spiritual. It's not the right time for me to forgive. It's not the right time for me to, love myself, whatever, like whatever people would say. I mean, how do you know when it's time? Like how does a person know that they should be heading this way? I say that.
Well, I would offer a couple things. One is, if someone's watching this, they're already ready. They wouldn't have watched this far and stayed with us unless they were ready to make some shift. Now, that doesn't mean you're ready to forgive, someone who maybe abused you horribly early in your life or recently. It doesn't mean that you're ready necessarily to forgive trauma. Maybe you are. You're not. That's not for me to say. But what I can say is that if you're here right now, part of you is ready to take at least one step forward. Maybe that step is 5 minutes of meditation a day, exercising, or maybe that step is, shifting your diet a little bit or taking a power nap, right? It's not for me to say whether or not you are ready to forgive a specific event. But what I can say is that when you orient towards the present moment, when you say, I just want to be here now. I want to enjoy what's here. Instead of being torn by my thoughts, pulled away, I want to enjoy this dessert that's in front of me. I want to enjoy connecting with this beautiful being in front of me. I want to enjoy holding the hand of a family member, a child, a partner, right? When we say, I want to enjoy the present moment more, that is the opportunity to say, I'm ready. Not ready for releasing the trauma or releasing the abuse or anything we haven't forgiven. I think that perspective can take us away from what's real. What I would say is, don't worry about whether or not you're ready to forgive. Just let that be a side point. So you hate the person, whatever. Be present with your hate. Take some deep breaths with that hate, okay? That's the step. And if you want to keep hating them for the rest of your lives, at least do it in the present moment. Breathe with it, be with it, okay? So it's not that you should or should not feel an emotion, that you should forgive or should not forgive. Unhelpful when we say, how do I know when I'm ready to forgive? Because it's not about being ready to do something. It's about being here now. Do you want this moment to feel more alive? Do you want to love your life more? Do you want to connect more, have more fun, more play? If those are the things you want, then just do something that operates in that general direction. Reminded of a totally different concept I hadn't thought of in years, related but tangential. So David Wolf, a wonderful health advocate, he says, don't try and get rid of the stuff you don't like. Don't try and eliminate sugar and eliminate unhealthy foods. Don't try and eliminate those things. Instead, bring in the things that you like. Find a superfood that you want in your diet. Drink a little more water. Do something that works for you. Because if you keep doing one little thing that works for you over and over, then all the bad, unhealthy food gets crowded out. It's just not as interesting. It's not as appealing. You don't have the same taste for it. That's what happens with things like forgiveness and anger. The more we come to the present moment, the more we take those deep breaths, the more we ask, how can this moment be awesome? How can I just love this more? we don't have space for the negativity. We don't have the same tolerance. We don't have the same interest in it. We might find ourselves turning off the news because we don't like the negativity around it, and instead reading a good book or listening to an audiobook or going for a walk. Not because the news is bad, not because the negative news makes us feel worse, but because we're just not as interested in it as we are in the things that make us feel good. So again, whether or not you're ready for forgiveness, I don't really care. It doesn't matter. You're obviously ready for a more empowered life, a more present life, a more enjoyable life. That's why you're here. So let go of, the ideas of what you should or shouldn't be doing, and instead just say, what do I want to do that feels good? And if you keep doing that over time, that you're like, well, there is that hurt in the past. I was interested in it. Person coming out, not as interested in it anymore.
I think I'm having a bit of connectivity issues. Can you hear me all right?
I can now. I did notice the connectivity issue, though, as well.
All right. Sorry about that. So it's just about choosing. It's just about choosing how you want to feel rather than being led by everything in the past around you. Is that what, would you agree with that?
That's a great distinguishment about the being led by the past.
I'm having I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, the connection is not great, but let's keep trying.
We'll run with it. It's what's showing up now, right? Are we going to live the teaching and forgive the internet connectivity for not being what we want it to be, even though it's not its fault? We can call the internet bad, negative, whatever. Or just say, this is what's happening.
That's right.
The internet is not connecting us the way we want it to be, and now it is.
Yeah.
So what I was just saying, though, is I love the distinguishment you made about, are we being led by our past, or are we consciously choosing and stepping into the moment that we want to live? Is it us being pulled into something, or us choosing to step into something?
Yeah. And yeah, so I've worked with somebody in the past who always said, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? And sometimes, even myself, I forget, like, oh yeah, I have to ask myself, how do I want to feel in this moment? Not like, how did I feel before when I was faced with a similar situation, or how do I think I want to feel in the future? No, it's like right now. So I really love that that idea. Now, what if people don't know? Because I've also worked with people who have no idea what they want, and they're really stressed out because they're, I don't know, whatever age, let's say they're 38, they're 48, they're 58, and they have no idea what they want because they've spent their whole entire lives like trying to please others. So what do they do?
I'm gonna bring a harsh truth here. Usually I'm not as direct, but those people are lying to themselves. Because implicit in not knowing what you want, saying you don't know what you want clarity. At the very least, you want clarity. You want some direction. You want some way to orient. So implicit in the very frustration is the answer. So if those people who, anybody who feels they don't know what they want, they're frustrated, whatever, well, if they know what they don't want, they can just flip that around. I don't want frustration, right? So what is that? Oh, that's peace, relaxation, ease. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I want clarity, right? So it's very easy if someone feels like they don't know what they want, write down every single thing they don't want. Just write them all down on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Put a line in the middle of the paper, and on the other side, write down the exact opposite of everything you don't want. And then ask yourself, is this something I want? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe you're stuck in an old story, an old forgiveness, and what you just really want is 3 out of those 5 things. And some of them are holding you back and you didn't even know it, right? But if you put it down on paper, what you don't want, little line, and then the opposite of that, you're going to start to see what you do want, what means something to you. So anytime you feel like you don't know what you want, be honest with yourself. Some part of you knows. It might not be the part that's stuck in anger, frustration, or unforgiveness, resentment, shame. That part might not be at the forefront. It may not know what you want. But if you actually ask the questions, what do I not want? You will discover on the flip side what it is you really do want.
And I love it. It's the simplicity of that exercise is brilliant, because a lot of people get so stuck in the I just have no idea, and then it becomes like this big comparison game, which I mean,
yeah, it is definitely a cycle we can get ourselves in. And there's one other psychologist trick that we can use on our brains. It's a little bit of forward pacing, but it's a great one that psychologists, really talented ones, will use, and coaches, when they want to get a person thinking. And they'll say, well, if you were to want something, what might you want? Just hypothetically, if you were to want something, what might you want? And suddenly it gets their creative brain engaged, gets them out of the stuckness. And it's amazing how many people know exactly what they would do or what they want if they're given permission to think of it as a fantasy, permission to think of it as a hypothetical. Because so often we think about what we want and we feel like we shouldn't have it. We feel like maybe we don't deserve it. Maybe it's wrong to have it. Maybe we have limiting beliefs around it. All these things can just, held back and stuck. But when we just say, hypothetically, if you were to want something, anything at all, what might you want? We're given permission to imagine. Doesn't mean that we have to get it. Doesn't mean we have to say that is what I want. But the permission to imagine shifts our thinking. And it lets us see what we might not have been giving ourselves permission or allowing ourselves to see. It allows us to look at what might be in our unconscious, waiting to be discovered, that wants to be discovered. And we just haven't explored it yet.
Yes, absolutely. The permission is so extraordinary. And there's a lot of people who don't give themselves permission because they think, whatever upbringing they've had, whether they've been sort of brought up in guilt and shame, and they say, you were bad, so you actually don't deserve to have a great life. So yeah, it's a very simple yet profound way of sort of moving them out of that and allowing them to create a great life. Oh, so amazing. So if there was sort of one tip that you had to share with people to say, if there's nothing else, I mean, you've talked about meditation, you've talked about the teeny steps to greatness, about being in the present moment, about not eliminating things, but just adding some really good things for you, a little at the time, so that they move out or they push out the bad stuff. So if you had to maybe pick from one of those, or maybe something else, what would it be that you would say to people, like, for you was actually the thing that, changed it all for you?
Right. I think that tends to be a circular direction, because saying what is the best thing for me or works for me might be the exact opposite of what someone listening would find most beneficial. Okay. So I share all of these things as the incremental things that have helped me, piece by piece by piece. So what I would do is actually go through everything we've talked about, and just list, the different things, the areas of health, wellness, mindset, being in the present moment, meditating, water, sleep, diet, exercise. I mean, there's probably 10 or 20 different things we've touched upon, right? And all of them can be done in a very small incremental way. None of them have to be a big job, a big change. So I would literally just list all of those and pick the one that you know you can do 100% commit to, the easiest. No friction, no problems, no judgment, no shame. Just the one thing you know, like, yeah, it's no problem. Of course I can drink 1 glass of water when I wake up in the morning. Yeah, I can do that. You fill up the water at night, put it next to your bedstand. As soon as you wake up, you see it, you drink it, right? Extra hydration. Maybe that's the one thing that you can change right now. So I would just make the list of them and pick just the one change you absolutely can make right now. And it doesn't even have to be one that you like or resonate with, just the easiest, the lowest friction one. And then once you've got that integrated, then you can either expand it. So if it's 5 minutes of meditation that works for you, or if it's a case of drinking a glass of water, maybe the next step is to bring in 5 minutes of meditation a day. But again, incrementally bring in one thing at a time from whatever we've talked about that you can do the easiest, not what you think you should do, not what you think Chris would do or Linda would do or your friend or teacher would do. Forget what anybody else you think would do, okay? And forget what you think will give you the best results, okay? I don't think that's even a helpful perspective. Do the absolute easiest thing that you can do that we've talked about. And then once you've got that in a habit for a few weeks, then find the next absolute easiest thing on the list and do that one. And you keep repeating this process of just doing what is easy. Don't make this hard. Don't make it a source of frustration. Don't feel like you have to forgive yourself because you're not doing the biggest thing on the list or not meditating for 2 hours a day. Forget all that. This isn't about what you should be doing, what you could be doing, or even what you want to be doing. It's only about doing the absolute easiest thing. Because honestly, I'm kind of a lazy person. You know, I honestly, I'm kind of lazy, and I just want to do the easiest, quickest, fastest ways to get the results I want. And for me, the fastest, easiest way is to do the easiest things and just allow that to lead me to become a habit. So then I'm not even consciously thinking about it. You know, I've got the water next to my bed. I've been doing that for years. I don't think about it anymore. I fill up the water, before I go to bed. I drink it in the morning. No big deal. It doesn't matter. Meditation, right? Do it for, I started at 5 minutes a day and then expanded to 10 when I felt like I could do it easily, when it wouldn't be a frustration, when I wouldn't hold guilt or shame because I'm not doing it for the whole 5 minutes, right? If 5 minutes is too much, do it for 2, right? Do it for 1. It really doesn't matter what you do, but take something we've talked about, the easiest thing, and do that. And then the next easiest thing and do that. And so on. And over the course of months and years, you'll see phenomenal changes in your life. You won't see them in a week. It doesn't matter. That's not what easy is about. This is about doing what's guaranteed to work. And that's what I want to point you towards. What's guaranteed to work is the easiest, lowest friction thing. And then adding the next easiest, lowest friction thing, guaranteed to work. I promise you, you do the easiest thing, it will work over time as you do more and more easy things.
And so do miracles happen?
Yes, they do. Absolutely. And that would be a whole other dialogue and adventure that we could have. But what I can say is that miracles happen more for me when I am in the present moment, when I'm doing what's easy, not when I'm trying to manifest a miracle, not when I'm have the goal or the outcome that says, if I had a miracle, then I could have a good life. If I had the miracle, I'd be happy. No, forget that. It's that when I am doing what's easy, when I am doing what brings me to the present moment, more and more miracles happen. They might start small and easy and get larger and bigger and more frequent over time. The more that I'm present, the more I do what's easy. So yes, miracles absolutely do happen. They will happen more and more frequently, but don't have an idea about how they should happen, when they should happen, what they should look like. Do what's easy and then watch, more and more miracles show up.
I love the do what's easy. And I'm sure a lot of people will, because we've been taught, and I know from my corporate experience as well, you don't do what's easy, you fix what's wrong. And you fix what's wrong again, and you fix and you fix and you fix. So doing what's easy is Like, it's just an absolute a breath of fresh air. I love it. Absolutely great. Yeah, this has been such a fantastic conversation, Chris. I mean, I personally have gotten so much out of it. I've actually learned a lot more about the present moment, you know, more today than I have in a long time, even though I've been doing this work for a while. But it's amazing. I absolutely love your concept of do what's easy, the lowest friction thing, because yeah, for me that's the huge takeaway for this. I sincerely thank you for your time, for your generosity, for your openness and willingness to share with us today. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's been wonderful, and I hope you have an amazing day.
I will. Thanks. You too. Bye, Chris.